Hello kittens, welcome back. This is Seth the Cat. Today we're working on a Godot game. It's called SplitRacers. It is a 2D racer battler, and it's meant to be for mobile. So that's something special, I think. A split screen game for the mobile. It's not common. We have a limited screen size. We've got limited controls, but we're doing our best to make an awesome game nonetheless. So, yesterday we were working on a couple of UI tweaks. We introduced our announcer, which we voiced with some robotic voice effects and some crazy pitch shifting. So I'll give you a look at how that sounds in a moment. We also did a couple of UI tweaks. We updated some of the sprites, and today we're just going to work on the ammunition system and the new phase system. So I'll run you through how that works. So let's jump into our Godot editor and let's push play and see where we got to.
Phase 1. Collect stars and weapons.
Okay, I think there's a little bit of an issue with my sound. One moment. I got a Elgato capture card recently to help my MacBook because my MacBook was overheating trying to do the video processing. And honestly, I'm not super impressed by what the Elgato was it the Elgato 4K 60S Plus. Not super impressed with this equipment, I'll be honest. It's cutting out all the time. Okay, let's see if that's gonna work.
Phase 1.
There we go. Alright.
Stars and weapons.
Cool. So phase 1 is 30 seconds for each player to run around and collect stars. Stars are essentially their life total. So as they zoom around the level, they collect as many lives as they can. They can't shoot, but they can collect weapons. And the weapon collection UI is still in progress. We were working on that yesterday. And then when 30 seconds is up, the game pauses, and then all of a sudden the players are allowed to use their weapons, and all the stars they've collected up until that point are used as lives to survive against the onslaught. So you can see here, player 2, the green player, has 13 stars, and the red player has none. We've got multiple weapons. We've got 3 weapons at the moment. We'll add a couple more today. I've got some of the sound effects and sprites already sorted out. So we have sort of an area control grenade type weapon, which is the ice. If you tap it, it'll shoot behind you. And if you hold the button down, it'll shoot in front of you. So you can use it in various forms. You will get frozen if you touch that aura. We have the missile. So the missile is a little different from normal missiles. It's actually a bouncy missile. I don't know why, I just thought it was fun. So the idea of the bouncy missile is it basically just bounces around until it hits the player. And then we might make it a homing missile depending on how difficult it is in game testing. The third is a sort of defensive tool. So if the player is about to shoot you, you can use this. Or it's also an offensive tool where you don't really need to aim, which is quite useful. And that's the Ninja Star. So we've got our theme music in. We did some sessions on Friday where we mixed that and produced that music using Logic. Then we've updated some of these sprites. Yesterday and updated this UI a little bit. I'm still not 100% on these buttons. We'll probably make them a bit chunkier, like these ones here, because I like how that chunkiness translates. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to just get these icons working nicely for the player, so that as they collect multiple weapons in phase 1 and phase 2, they can see which weapons they are getting. Okay, so let's jump into our game scene. So our game scene is pretty much the layout of the UI and the rest of the level. Right, so we have a horizontal manager which manages our horizontal screen split. Then we have another horizontal manager. It's called a HBox container in Godot, and that's a separate manager for the UI. So here we've got our player 1 controls, our player 1 status bar, player 2 controls, and our player 2 status bar. So the status bar is obviously what we want to update. So I think these icons are just going to need a little bit of a tweak. I think what we might want to do is if we treat these icons instead like a 9-patch rectangle, right? And we're going to call this an inventory icon. Okay. And I'm going to save this branch as its own scene. And we're going to save that into the GUI, right? We don't have a status bar area. Oh, it's in controls, isn't it? Yeah, we'll put it in here. Put it in controls. It's kind of pilot controls. So we'll call this an inventory icon, like so. And I'm going to drag this into here. Now I'm going to get rid of all of these because we don't want them anymore. Cool. Alright. So the next thing I want to do is I want to pull out our weapons into our game state. This is something I want to do in the code. Let me just... Okay, here we go. So I've got this thing that I call the model. And right now it's pretty simple, so I've just kept it in one file. So whenever I do any software, I like to consider my model separately from the rest of the software. So the model is how I represent the current state of play, right? The current internal state of the system. And that's why I'm calling model here, and this is the game state. Godot handles almost everything for me. The only thing I really need to keep track of, personally, in my code, is how many stars each player has, which weapons they have, whether they can shoot or not, how much power they have, that sort of thing. One thing I think I might do, so we have this all weapons const, but I kind of want it to be in. I think that's fine. Okay, so we already kind of have these weapons available to us. So I think that's fine. In that case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump down into this inventory icon, and I'm going to create an inventory icon script and just save that. I'm not going to edit it within Godot because Godot editors are a little basic, let's face it. Okay. So inside our GUI controls, we have our inventory icon script. And first thing we're wanting to do is we're wanting to export a variable, put the type first, string variable. And I like to think of this more of an expose than an export. And we're going to call this item type. And by default, we'll just put it like an empty string. Okay. And then we're wanting to have a ready function, which is like a callback, right? And I'll just pass for now. Okay. So now if I switch and look up here, look at test here. I think if I reopen this scene, it's just because I don't think it updated. Sorry, let's go into the P1 status bar here, and if I click here, here we go. Item type is now test, and if I update this, the item type should empty basically. Okay, so it doesn't remember that off the bat. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to provide a texture for these icons, and I'm just going to use this button BG. Right, and we're going to provide it with, I think, 4 pixels on all sides. And what we're going to do, I think it's actually supposed to be in this patch margin, right? Okay, and we want to provide a minimum size, and that's going to be 16 by 16, I think. Maybe we'll set the size to 32 by 32 for now. Okay. So we've got this little icon box, right? Oops, probably, damn it, I didn't mean to do that. Clear this. I've got to forgot to make these changes inside the scene, right? So we don't want to make it outside the scene, because then we'd have to copy. We want these changes to be permanent, so we want to do it inside the scene. And we're just going to do the same thing, but here, so our patch margin is going to be roughly 4 pixels on each side. Okay, and then our rectangle, we're going to do a 32 by 32 with a minimum size of 16 by 16. So the icons we're using in